Ivan's small hand reached toward the sunlight pouring in from outside the house. How long had I waited for this moment, finally? His dreamy blue eyes looked up, feeling the warmth on his skin, the unfamiliar ceiling, a sense of strangeness. Ivan delightedly fantasized about beautiful warrior women possessing bodies, teleporting, and being reborn into another world. Whichever it was, I succeeded. Earlier on Earth, where Kim Sunwoo lived, a blinding flash had appeared. Citizen of the Republic of Korea, Kim Sunwoo had prepared for this moment for a very long time. Inside the room, he kept working the computer with practiced skill, every book, novel, website, and game he had ever read, and the heavens. Kim Sunwoo's fingers tapped rapidly on the mechanical keyboard, the clacking filling the small room with every work he liked. He quickly produced a long passage in the comments, leaving a review of 5,700 words. Kim Sunwoo wore a very serious expression under the blue glow of the screen, working tirelessly each day. Each time it was a different, rigorous, and meticulous analysis. He critiqued every character and plot element, the storyline, world building, and then Kim Sunwoo seriously reviewed other external factors in the story, the relationship charts appearing in the work. He even memorized the locations of hidden rewards and relics. Finally, he commented on the work's stylistic design. Of course, most of the responses under Kim Sunwoo's book review post were not praise but rather the opposite. The author faced the fury of fans, 992 comments in total, even though the outcome was mass backlash and being blocked across online communities. At that moment, a white light carried him away from Earth, his consciousness transferred into Ivan's blue pupils, and at last he had succeeded. He had possessed a body in another world. The place he was in had simple wooden and thatched houses. Let's see. Ivan sat up, reaching to pinch his cheek drowsily to confirm his identity. About 4 years old by appearance, or maybe check his stats, After a moment's thought, he stretched out his hand and loudly spoke the command from memory to confirm once more. Status panel. After a few seconds of waiting, Ivan couldn't see anything appear. He awkwardly withdrew his hand and, embarrassed, put on a contemplative look. So this wasn't the usual regression type, but that's fine. Seconds later, Ivan regained his confidence, curling the corner of his mouth and trusting his extensive memory. Among the works he'd reviewed were many that lacked status panels. Anyway, time and the ability to dominate this other world were on his side. Wearing an oversized shirt and eyes full of determination, he stepped out of the crude house. Should he start crafting something to make a bunch of money first? Ivan's time passed quickly after his arrival. Voices of men and children worked together in the yard when Kim Sunwoo realized his body bore the name Ivan Petrovich. He carefully brought a basket full of potatoes to his mother while his father held a hoe. Their parents were tenant farmers. Don't even mention the country's name or the fact that they were uneducated, illiterate. Not long after, Ivan tried making bubbles with a large rock but scared himself. Thinking he'd invented something great, he tried to make soap and failed miserably. In the end, he received a painful spanking, not only punished for playing with water, but in fact soap already existed in this world. A long time after, Ivan inhabited the kid's body. Scraps of newspaper were distributed as waste all along the long road through the quiet town he walked. When he went to the village to buy eggs for his mother, the papers caught his eye. Ivan was quite surprised reading the newspapers. If printing and distributing papers to such remote countryside were possible, then at least this wasn't the medieval era. So what exactly was this place? He held a long fountain pen and crossed out each line he'd written on a sheet of paper. That day most entries on the candidate list for possession had been struck out. The time since Ivan's appearance gradually stretched longer and longer. He once again gathered a bit more information about the post-possession world in the new country. Finally, Kim Sunwoo learned the name of the nation he now lived in and the name of its king. A tongue of flame immediately swallowed the list Ivan had written from his superhuman memory. He crushed the few remaining pages of the candidate list and threw them into the fire. The cheerful, cozy city only made him more aware and increasingly suspicious. A country he'd never heard of, a monarch he'd never heard of, neighboring states he'd never heard of. Ivan sat before the fire, watching the papers burn as the weak light illuminated his seriousness. Rather than worry about which work he'd possessed, the biggest question was which genre he'd entered. But afterward, the time since his possession continued to increase. 3 monsters with strange, ferocious appearances appeared in Ivan's living world. Suddenly, the Demon King descended. In the small village came the reassuring and instructive voice of a man. "Don't worry, wait here with Ivan." 2 soldiers in uniform coldly led Ivan's father out of the house with worried faces. "Kim Sunwoo's father, not Ivan's. I will definitely return." Only he and the orange-haired woman watched the 3 figures leave, who had been taken by the recruitment officer to the battlefield. Ivan's serious blue pupils then showed irritation and resentment. From that point, Kim Sunwoo's ego began to warp. Years passed again as he lived in the new world after successfully possessing the body. Ivan calmly helped his mother with her meticulous sewing and spinning. Kim Sunwoo did not. Ivan now followed his mother and performed chores quite skillfully. Time in the new world once more flew by. It was the 8th year after the possession. He sat solemnly at the table, pen in hand, writing attentively. Ivan used every spare moment to study and finally learned the world's script. Another 2 years passed while he remained in the new world. In the 10th year after possession, the sky over his village suddenly darkened, bringing Ivan shocking and terrible news. A death notice for his father arrived. A sheet with neatly printed lines was delivered to Ivan. Ironically, it was an official bulletin issued 2 years earlier. That notice left him with a pale face mixed with confusion and rage. What is this? Now I don't understand anything anymore. Could the genre of this world be a tactical simulation? Ivan frowned, unwilling to accept it. His constant thoughts made him more agitated. Clearly a different world, yet there were firearms and steam engines, and if it were mundane life, then knights, mages, the Demon King, and other races would be clashing in war. If so, then. But the slight sounds now made him look up. His face still showed unsettled confusion. He looked at the woman in pain, her whole body trembling as she covered her mouth to stifle her cries, "Mother." Ivan watched her clutch her face and sob. His voice trembled with emotion. How could this happen? He did nothing else but softly try to reassure the grieving woman before him. "Don't worry, mother." The next day, Ivan stood on the train platform and followed the soldiers marching forward. Having decided to enlist, he bore the insignia on his shoulder. Ivan carefully handed the train ticket to the soldier at the locomotive. His pay was 15 copper coins, all agreed to be sent under his mother's name. Then he and the others rode the long train. Ivan sat hunched, lost in thought, not out of filial piety but from compassion for the woman who had sacrificed her life for him. His brow furrowed with clear seriousness and determination, born of guilt for occupying Ivan's body, the son who had been that woman's only support to carry on living. The time he spent in this new body kept accumulating, the 14th year after possession, his 4th year in the military. With his unusually blue pupils, Ivan recklessly charged into battle through seas of flame using various weapons. He discovered his body and realized he had more combat talent than he'd thought. His boots trampling demons with his own madness and rage, he scored a string of small victories on the battlefield. He was no longer a conscript but had become regular military. The scene around him was blazing and ruined, yet the front still collapsed disastrously and half the allied nations had been engulfed in flames. And around that time, a young blonde man suddenly appeared in gleaming golden armor. The champion had arrived. Finally, the roster of protagonists Ivan had long awaited made a splendid entrance. At that moment, Ivan thought he finally knew this world's genre, the traditional champion demon kingslayer tale. The explosions overhead shook the earth, producing a powerful shock that terrified the soldiers. The champion's arrival seemed like it should bring hope, but regrettably on the front line where Ivan fought, huge rending beasts with rows of fanged mouths charged crazily at them, and they were still being pushed back miserably. Ivan's age increased again over the course of his time in the other world. Maximilian had barely appeared before cutting the young demon king in two with a single slash. As the champion squad systematically eliminated the demon army's commanders, the war's momentum was reversed. They fought bravely, weapons in hand. Ivan, having achieved consecutive feats, was assigned to serve with the champion squad. Rain began pouring down, the forest sky turned pitch black, the unit secured liberated zones and swept up enemy remnants. To shorten that long name, Ivan, gripping two spears, looked down at the grotesque monster below in the pit, the extermination team. It was a special operations unit thrown into battle. Rain relentlessly drenched his battered body as the champion squad killed enemy commanders, sending the enemy camp into chaos and collapse. Thus 2 years passed and his counted years increased steadily. Maximilian's group rode proudly into the city with the people to celebrate. The champion squad had slain the Demon King. Ivan showed no expression, merely watching them from above with the other soldiers. He decided to wait for the finale. Seconds later, his gaze turned cold as he stared down. Now I can escape this hateful world. But then the number of years Ivan lived increased arithmetically again. Inside the castle where the Demon King had once appeared, there was now only an empty fortress. Though the Demon King had been dead for 2 years, there was still no conclusion. The city's houses bore varying degrees of damage and desolation from the war. During that time, the extermination team's numbers fell to only 1/5. Ivan's blue pupils remained unchanged but grew more hollow before the carnage. He fought crazily with powerful combat skills to eliminate thieves and read his superior's intent to disband the unit. After carrying out his final mission, Ivan walked straight into death. Ivan's blue eyes, like a starving wolf panting after a long battle, submitted a discharge application, hoping even this protracted epilogue would finally end. The years Ivan spent in the other world increased once more, almost against his will. At a large church with green trees and a bright sky, his mother had already died 10 years earlier. Ivan stood before the gate with an old, bearded appearance, gazing at the scene. When he returned to his hometown, he was utterly alone. He stood before a large angel statue and simply watched. Ivan founded an orphanage near the capital and took in children orphaned by the war. He still stood there waiting for an ending, but nothing happened, still the same up until now. Up to this moment, the end credits never appeared. Outside, the silhouettes of children played happily in the sun, and their childish laughter carried over the St. Vasilicia orphanage. Ivan, with a thick beard, sat seriously inside the library. He diligently kept jotting notes into a notebook, constantly muttering, "I remember so well, I really do." Ivan circled lines with a red fountain pen, remembering until he felt mad. He sat nearly desperate, fingers intertwined, questioning himself. 4 years have passed since the Demon King died. When will there be an ending? Could the condition to finish the game be to wait for the old champion to die? Suddenly, a pair of tall boots stepped forward. He immediately noticed from inside the room. Ivan glanced aside while pushing his chair back. His gaze remained sharp and focused forward at the sound. As he listened to the footsteps, Ivan analyzed every detail: the characteristic scrape of leather, the scent of gunpowder, the cadence of the steps. Only a professionally trained soldier would move like that. He held a specially made spear in hand, his face showing clear seriousness. The door slowly opened with a familiar creak. Dmitri cheerfully raised his hand in salute to Ivan. "Long time no see, senior, are you well? I should have visited more often." Ivan answered in a low, hoarse tone, "No, Dmitri." Ivan raised his axe as if ready to charge. "You should knock first," Dmitri said, terrified, waving his hand and protesting loudly. "Senior, do we ever act like that? Also, that beard doesn't suit you at all. What's up with it?" He calmed at once and directly ordered, "Get to work." Dmitri, teasing, handed him a letter. "Long time no see, and you won't even let me sit," still as hot-tempered as ever. Ivan, slightly surprised, looked at the letter. "What is this?" As he took off his coat, he advised, while Ivan brooded, "Just read it. It's a handwritten letter from Her Highness the Princess." He sighed but cautiously asked Dmitri if the letter might be poisoned. Dmitri paid it no mind and answered casually as he sat on the bench opposite, "It's probably just a courtesy letter. Open it and see." Ivan remained extremely wary and looked down. A courtesy letter from Her Highness the Princess. He thought of Elizaveta's proud silhouette from memory, Elizaveta Kirillovna Krasilov. Someone like Liza, bloodthirsty as she is, would never send me a letter merely to ask about my health. He hesitated briefly before speaking. "Seems the situation is rather difficult." Dmitri blinked and then complained to Ivan, "It's really tough, sir. The military government nags every day demanding withdrawal." The two sat opposite each other in the room discussing Aosin's situation. Crown Prince Alexander wants to partition the country into 5 parts to sell off. The atmosphere around them grew heavy, while His Majesty the King sat silently without a word. Then Dmitri excitedly smiled and told Ivan that, astonishingly, amid the war, an international university, the most prestigious university of the Federal Kingdom, had been founded. Dmitri eagerly continued, teasing with a few riddles. "St. Jansk University, do you know who enrolled this year as freshmen and faculty?" He then answered himself, a blonde girl somewhat like Maximilian Isabel. Next was a brave young man wielding a long spear, Oscar. The third was an elf girl holding a staff, Elfir. The fourth was a red-haired courageous girl carrying a great axe, Esidice. The fifth was a mysterious girl wielding 2 small daggers, very nimble, Lucia. At last, the gentle face of the saintess of the champion squad appeared, Patricia, the child of the heroes who slew the Demon King, and the 3 new deans were in fact the saintess of that old champion squad. Dmitri recounted this to Ivan with grave enthusiasm, because admissions had no age limit. Promising children from around the world were preparing to enroll early. Though his tone was cheerful, his face revealed a sinister unease as he thought of the influence wielded by the children of the champion squad members. What if some of them were injured or killed? Ivan, understanding the consequences, merely asked what should be done. Does this country count as finished? He seriously raised 3 fingers toward Ivan and continued, "Protect those children until they return to their homeland without so much as a hair harmed. Please guard them for exactly 3 years." He frowned, thinking seriously, what kind of champion ending is this? The hero slays the Demon King and they live happily ever after is nonsense. The international situation is chaotic, domestic politics are a mess, and on top of that. Deep down, Ivan was puzzled. Suddenly there's an all-girls academy. Suddenly Ivan sat bolt upright, as if remembering something. Ivan's face became panicked. Worry showed in the depths of his eyes. Wait. He slammed the table with fiery force. Ivan pressed down so hard on the wooden surface that it cracked. Ivan immediately stopped squeezing, leaving a large broken chunk in the table. So this turns out to be a school life genre, huh? Dmitri, seeing Ivan enraged, went pale and asked, "Senior, what's wrong? Are you all right?" Ivan replied in a low, angry tone, "You ask if I'm all right." Then Ivan fell silent, hands trembling. "I've been struggling in that other world for 30 years. Was all of that just the prologue?" Ivan squeezed the wooden fragment in his hand and slowly withdrew it, leaving a large hole. "If that's the case." With some contempt he asked again, "You just need to ensure those children graduate, right? Find some ending or whatever." Ivan clenched his hands into a fist. Joy and resolve showed clearly on his face. "Understood. Orders accepted. Let's go home, Kim Sunwoo." Kirilovna opened the letter by inquiring after her old comrade. "Ivan, are you well? I still hear news of you occasionally. It seems you are living quite well." She recalled the days they had spent together. "Do you remember when we struggled to tend the garden? I hoped we'd one day share tea together, yet you left without looking back." But Ivan, Kirilovna solemnly warned of the coming situation. Winter approaches again. A colder, quieter winter than last year is near. She gently reached out to touch the green leaves. Memories of the old garden with Ivan came flooding back. Kirilovna walked through each corner of the yard, pleading with the comrade she trusted most. "Ivan, my most trusted laborer." She vowed to give everything in exchange for Ivan's help. "If you desire anything, I will repay you threefold. If payment is insufficient, I will pay with our friendship. If that still isn't enough to settle the debt, I will pay with our memories." Kirilovna ended the letter with a sincere plea. "The kingdom still needs your service as it has before and will in the future. Affectionately, Kirilovna." In the audience chamber, Ivan set the letter on the table and calmly responded, "I've read it, so in summary." He quickly grasped Kirilovna's request. "For 3 years, until the children of the champion squad graduate the academy, no one is to be injured or killed, right?" Ivan suddenly realized the true genre of this world and thought to himself, So it's actually an academy story. Does that mean if I endure 3 more years I get the ending and can go home? He exhaled, looked at the friend across from him, and asked, Dmitri, who will arrive first? Dmitri immediately reported the information he'd gathered. It's Einar's daughter. Senior, it said the king's child is scheduled to depart first. He stiffened at the familiar name, Einar. In an instant, he recalled the current identity of his old comrade, though now called the King of Drone. When thinking of the former member of the previous champion squad, Ivan remembered him like this. In his memory, Einar swung a giant axe and barked instructions. Kid Ivan, you chop an axe like this. Ivan quietly thought about the first person heading to the academy and the first one bound for it. He was powerless when he realized the person he had to protect was Einar's daughter, the daughter of that madman. In the kingdom of Drone, the people proudly praised their princess. How proud they were, the greatest heir of Drone, bearing the blood of the great conqueror Einar, you will surely conquer everything. The Dhaka crowd had gathered. A sweet feminine voice rang out. The girl, embarrassed by the flattery, shouted, You all tease me so much, fine, just wait and see. Someone in the crowd boasted happily, Of course, whose child is she? The people remembered the rumors spreading through the kingdom. Have you heard? Those around immediately asked, the noise turning chaotic. What's that? What's that? One leaned in and whispered mysteriously. They say she's off to conquer the entire symphony orchestra. From the ship, a girl with tile-red hair clutching an instrument case strode forward, shouting at the top of her lungs, What's wrong with symphonic music? This was Esidisi, the eldest daughter of the berserker Einar. She snorted coldly and confidently declared to those seeing her off, Watch and see how successful I'll be. The system recorded the name, eldest daughter Esidisi, enrolled in the instruments department at St. Jansk Conservatory. The train waited as she crossed the bridge through the snowy mountains. The nightly order saw Esidisi off in a grand ceremony, and 2 days later, a sudden train accident struck. The train sped amid blazing red sparks. It derailed and was going to overturn. Cutscene. Dmitri was stunned by Ivan's firm assertion. What, a train bombing out of nowhere? Are you sure? Ivan confirmed his prediction without hesitation. Yes. Why? The room grew somber as he calmly offered a reason Dmitri couldn't grasp. Because this is an academy genre. Ivan recalled the familiar rules of the hero genre. In that genre, the hero and his comrades slay the Demon King. He went on to list events that would almost certainly occur. One of the loyal subordinates will side with the hero. Ultimately, the familiar ending of Hero Tales follows. The end of the journey, the world regains peace. Ivan understood that every story runs by its own rules, all of this. These formulas are called tropes. Likewise, every genre has its conventions. When the letter was consumed by fire, he remembered what had happened 30 years ago. 30 years ago, Ivan tried to rummage through dormant memories as he recalled the contents of the documents that had been burned. In his memory, the location of the incident appeared clearly: Igorovich Station, the bombing on the matriculation train. Ivan was at the station, silently investigating with a newspaper in hand. He was certain the bombing was inevitable. He checked his watch and realized what he'd been waiting for would occur here. It was 9 o'clock. Princess Esidisi's train was about to arrive. Ivan scanned the entire station and predicted where the enemy would strike. If someone targeted Princess Esidisi, it would be at this station right on the border. First, they had to cross the border to pin blame on the kingdom, and since the area beyond this station was a military zone, the guards would be extremely strict. He rose and left silently. Ivan admitted his plan was still flawed. Of course, he had no proof, so he hadn't requested reinforcements. Amateurish, he muttered, and continued to watch the quiet station. His gaze quickly fixed on the suspicious vegetable seller smoking in front of the stall. Ivan silently watched everyone present. Among those at the station, the man who looked like he was checking the train times had let the train pass 3 times already, and he glanced at the man pretending to sell vegetables and immediately noticed something off. The fellow furtively looking around while selling produce was even more ridiculous. Who would buy vegetables at this deserted rural station? He was even smoking right in front of the pile of greens. Ivan slowly approached from behind, his cold eyes locked onto the suspicious man seated on the bench. The man flinched when he realized Ivan had closed in, his face paling in fright. Ivan drew his gun and aimed it at the man's head, quickly subduing him before he could react. The employee was startled by Ivan's sudden appearance and angrily barked, "You are." Ivan gently manipulated the gun's barrel, closed in immediately, and spoke coldly, "Silence." A comrade farther off noticed the commotion and shouted, "Hold on, hey, what are you doing over there? Stop." Ivan calmly watched their reactions and quietly reasoned, how absurd. At that angle the pistol should have been concealed and not visible. Just to be safe, I'll confirm one last time. He trained the gun on the man and asked in a cold voice, "Where does your loyalty lie?" The man stammered at Ivan's unexpected question, panic revealing his guilt. "What?" Before the man could answer or react, Ivan coldly pulled the trigger, ending him on the spot. The gunshot left the others stunned. The man collapsed to the floor, his blood a chilling warning. From their reactions, Ivan immediately determined the identities of everyone at the station. They were neither reinforcements nor agents loyal to the crown. If they were trained operatives, they'd have reported their unit instead of hesitating. Clearly, they were all cut from the same cloth. Realizing their cover was blown, the leader panicked and ordered an attack. "Damn it, shoot him, kill that man." Ivan lightly dodged the incoming bullets like a predator. They were too amateurish, not from the royal forces. The terrorists opened fire in unison, but he vanished through the hail of bullets before they could lock onto him. Ivan drew his axe and swept with terrifying speed. One strike sent the nearest men's arms flying. He charged into the enemy formation and began a slaughter, and finally, Ivan spun within the encirclement, unleashing a series of decisive slashes that quickly wiped out the entire group, and in the end, He coldly watched those trembling before his overwhelming strength, having never faced a truly powerful opponent. The man clutched at his severed arm and howled in pain, "My arm." Corpses lay in disarray. Ivan stood among the fallen, calmly tightening his battle axe as a warning. "If you don't stop the bleeding, you'll die in 3 minutes. He lowered his eyes to the dying man and continued to question him, "Where are the others?" The man panickingly revealed his comrades' positions to beg for his life. 15 by the tracks. "You can't handle them alone. I'll help you, please save me." He tried to use information about the leader to persuade Ivan. "The leader is a monster. Sparing me will draw his attention." Ivan quickly grasped the role of the group at the station. It turned out they were the vanguard. The man kept nodding, "Yes, yes, if you spare me I'll cooperate, I'll be a big help." Ivan paid no heed to his pleas and pressed on, "Have you heard who is on that train?" The man immediately recounted the information he'd received. They said it was a train transporting gold ingots. They claimed it was a commercial freight train bound for the kingdom. Ivan tightened his axe. The man looked at him with hopeful eyes and cautiously asked, "You'll spare me, right? I told you everything you asked honestly." Ivan coldly denied him, "No, there's a lie in that." The man went pale, panic-stricken, not understanding where he'd gone wrong. What do you mean?" Fleeing a night full of dreams, Ivan poured all his strength into the battle axe and brought it down to finish the last man before he could rise. "The claim that you were useful." Cutscene. The station clock quickly ticked through the remaining time. It was now 9:53 a.m. Ivan calmly wiped the blood from his hands and estimated his crime scene cleanup speed. Time for a member of the extermination squad to clear bodies and blood, 5 minutes. The station was deserted. He continued calculating. Cleanup done by 9:58, still 2 minutes before the train arrived. After clearing the scene, Ivan stood coldly among drifting leaves, his expression as calm as if no battle had occurred, leisurely bored. Kirilovna asked calmly about the whereabouts of the old comrade, and what about Ivan? The subordinate bowed and reported Ivan's recent actions. "He's suspicious of a train bombing, sir, and he's even pinpointed the time and place fairly precisely." Kirilovna suspected Ivan had a secret intelligence network. "Does Ivan have informants?" Dmitri promptly denied it. "No, ma'am, there's been no sign of that in the past 4 years. Kirilovna laughed, making Dmitri speak cautiously. "Yes, ma'am." She sighed, looked off into the distance, and ordered Dmitri to monitor all of Ivan's actions, every move down to the smallest detail. "Record it and bring it to me." Kirilovna wanted to know every development related to Ivan so she could check at any time. Her eyes brimmed with hatred as she recalled Ivan's appearance when he left on his last mission, just like when you departed on your final mission 4 years ago. Though that action was speculative, you radiated a strange confidence. The train carrying Essidici continued across the snowy mountains, heading straight toward where Ivan waited. The men tightened the detonation switch in their hands to carry out the plan. Kirilovna thought to herself, I'm sure of it. Immediately after, Ivan sprang through the snow curtain and quickly chased after the speeding train. Kirilovna believed his prediction would come true this time too, because it's usual in school stories. The train bombing would certainly occur. Essidici sat silently by the train window, unaware that a deadly trap waited ahead. Ivan knew this attack could not change the fate of important people. It couldn't harm the main character or key figures. Explosives had been secretly planted along the tracks by the terrorists. The train bombing occurs before matriculation because it's part of the rookie tutorial. The leader gripped the detonator, smug that pressing the button would complete the plan. The tutorial stage is when players learn the game, just press the button and everything ends so. His finger slowly pressed the red button, officially initiating the train bombing. A massive explosion immediately swallowed the locomotive, the train shaking amid a sea of fire. Ivan revealed his true plan nonchalantly. From the start, I never intended to stop this train bombing. Essidici clutched her head in panic amid the blast, but she remained unharmed because the tutorial must be handled by the protagonist, not me. The leader smiled viciously, fully believing the prey on the train had no way out. All right, let's rob the train. Ivan will act now. I will use the opportunity to uncover the organization behind this bombing plot. He sprinted at terrifying speed, and then I will destroy that organization at the academy. Ivan disappeared behind the thick curtain of snow to avoid a direct confrontation, conducting intelligence activities from the rear. He moved while tightening his grip on the gun and battle axe, ready to remove any threat that appeared on the way, eradicating threats at their root. In the blaze, Ivan coldly pulled the trigger, beginning the hunt for those who targeted Essidici's train. That's how the extermination team operates. Thick black smoke billowed up after the explosion, shrouding the snowy mountains. The train derailed, rolling amid the inferno and leaving devastation behind. The terrorists surrounding the wreck cheered, now we're rich. One of them excitedly calculated how to fence the loot. All we need to do is scrape off the royal insignia, melt it down, and sell it on the black market. We'll be swimming in money. Boss, the leader urged his men, all right, clean this place up fast. Then he suddenly froze, a sense of danger tightening his expression. An unexpected attack hurtled in at terrifying speed, throwing the terrorists into chaos. One was struck and sent face first into the ground. The others looked around in panic, not knowing who had struck. What the hell? Fear is a trait of the weak. A terrorist frantically looked toward the sound. Damn it, who's there? Ivan immediately recognized their low skill. Their reaction showed none of them could sense projectile trajectories. The leader ground his teeth as he watched Ivan step out calmly, shouting, "That bastard." Ivan stepped out of the smoke, both hands on his guns, and asked coldly the man before him, "Are you the leader?" The leader panicked and ordered all his men to open fire. "Shoot him, shoot now." Ivan squinted and observed, immediately sensing the killing intent aimed at him. He focused on sensing the killing intent carried by the incoming bullets. That's called sensing projectile trajectories. Thanks to that, Ivan easily read the shooter's exact firing directions, preparing to dodge and counter. The terrorists fired in succession. He calmly avoided the volleys and recalled that firearms are useless against anyone who has surpassed a certain power threshold. Because of the killing intent carried through battle, Ivan felt the projectiles weaving around him. Considering all attack vectors, bullets and weapons would betray their users. He tightened his hold on the gun and remembered basic combat knowledge of mana users. With handheld weapons, hiding murderous intent with mana is fundamental, but doing so for flying objects like bullets or arrows is very difficult. Ivan spun among countless intersecting trajectories, smoothly evading every bullet hurtling toward him. He launched himself into the formation, dodging trajectories while shooting down the nearest man. Bullets and weapons exposed their wielders. Before they could close in, Ivan drew his gun and fired in an instant. A bullet pierced the enemy's head. He silently probed the opponent's strength. That's how he assessed an enemy's power. Ivan charged into the terrorists' ranks and coldly began the purge, eliminating the weak. A terrorist watched in horror as he felled them one after another in the blink of an eye. This bastard. The leader attacked while angrily demanding, "Who sent you? Where did this mad dog come from?" But Ivan was faster than his thoughts. He dodged the blade and snapped the attack in half in an instant. The cold counter left the opponent dazed. A blow to the gut sent him flying away. Before he could even properly recover, Ivan slammed him down into a deep pit. The ground caved in from the terrible impact, leaving him and the onlookers stunned into silence. He gritted his teeth and threatened, "Your face, I won't forget it. Just you wait, I will." Ivan cut the leader off immediately with a cold question. "Are you good at remembering faces?" He drew the gun he'd prepared and smiled, making the leader uneasy. Ivan realized the true identity of the man before him. This one was probably the tutorial boss. After all, he was meant for the protagonist. I have no intention of killing him, however. He spared the leader's life to force him to reveal everything. "Answer me now. If you think of any lies, I know countless ways to cause pain without leaving permanent scars." Cutscene. Before leaving, Esidice seriously warned her father, who always wanted to secretly follow and protect her. "Absolutely not. You must never follow me, if there's even the slightest chance." She firmly declared the consequence if Einar was caught trailing her. "If I catch you following me, I'll disown you." Watching his daughters retreating back, Einar froze at her decisive warning. Esidice meant it when she said that. He felt enlightened and quickly found a loophole in her words. "As long as we aren't detected, it's fine." Einar secretly summoned Drone's most trusted warriors. "That's why I've gathered all of you here." He looked around and loudly searched for someone capable of covertly protecting his daughter. "Who among you can guard Esidice without being detected?" A warrior immediately stepped forward and confidently accepted the task. "Right here." Then a brother suddenly appeared behind them, freezing the whole group. "Who are these people?" The warriors who once struck fear into many were a band of berserkers. Now they are men recognized by their lord as brothers, and Einar has many such brothers in arms. He quickly realized disguises wouldn't fool his daughter. "Esidice already knew all your faces. Even if you disguised yourselves on the train, she'd spot you immediately, so." Einar proposed a plan that stunned the warriors. "Who among you will chase the train on foot?" His warriors all stepped forward without any reward. "Right here." The brothers offered only steadfast loyalty. These men were absolutely loyal to Einar. In Drone, they were known as the family's house warriors. Einar looked at his brothers with satisfaction and raised a more important task. "Good, perfect. Now we must select one of you to enroll at St. Jansk University and protect my daughter. So, among you." He scanned the group and asked a question that instantly deflated their spirit. "Who's confident in their written exam skills? Raise your hand." Amid the murmurs, a confident hand went up. The house warriors balked at the challenge. "Worse than the battlefield. Ridiculous written exams. I'd rather die." When no one dared step forward, Mord Eriksson Huskarl unexpectedly accepted the mission. "I'll give it a try, sir." The system announced the warrior's name, Mord Eriksson Huskarl. Everyone patted Mord Eriksson's shoulder and enthusiastically encouraged their brother. "Don't worry, no matter how hard their exams are, how bad could they be?" Einar immediately decided his future with a single sentence. "Good, move forward, brother. From now on you'll be a freshman in the Department of Physical Education." Mord Eriksson solemnly accepted the order and swore to protect Esidice with his life. "Yes, sir, I will protect Esidice with my life." Mord Eriksson had been carrying out Einar's orders for 2 months. This man was the one who had secretly infiltrated the academy. Contrary to everyone's worry, he passed the entrance exam smoothly. He aced it beyond expectations and was admitted to the Department of Physical Education. Even so, Mord Eriksson's written test performance was nothing to be proud of. Of course, he only scraped by with the minimum passing score on the written exam. Not a few examiners gaped in surprise at that absurdity. Mord Erickson was able to enroll thanks to physical achievements far surpassing all other candidates, but that was possible because he set a new record in the practical exam. The judges stared in astonishment at Mord Erickson's almost inhuman physical power. He's a student? His stamina is incredible. Yes, that superior strength is the pride of the warriors loyal to Einar. The story of Mord Erickson begins on a bitterly cold winter day, one January day after he chased the train on foot over a great distance, running for 2 days and nights without rest or sleep. He is a freshman in the Department of Physical Education. Mord Erickson ran while anxiously calling Esidisi's name. Esidisi, wait for me, what bastards dared lay a hand on my granddaughter? The interior of the train reeked of corpses and smoldering ash. Esidisi, bewildered, tried to pull herself up, leaning against the wall and gasping, "What's happening?" She began to suspect, "Please don't tell me it's a robbery." On reflection, Esidisi panicked as she realized she had no guards beside her. "What am I going to do? Since I threatened to disown anyone who followed me, now I don't have a single protector with me." Suddenly she cried out with joy when she saw her lute still intact. Esidisi hugged her beloved instrument and breathed a sigh of relief. "Thank goodness, my small bowed lute, I was so worried it might be ruined." Suddenly a strange sound from outside made her start and open her eyes wide. The train door suddenly exploded open, and Esidisi screamed in fright. The smoke gradually cleared to reveal a group of people pouring in. Her arm trembled with each beat. A terrorist saw Esidisi hiding nearby and grinned maliciously. "Let's see if anyone's here." The henchman leered at her. "What's that, a girl?" The leader, tormented by Ivan's interrogation, begged for release. "Kill me, please, kill me." He calmly continued treating him. "It's okay, you certainly won't die." The leader clung to Ivan's leg, painfully begging for the end. "Kill me." Ivan gripped the bloodied axe, embarrassed by the desperate plea. "Don't say such terrifying things." A cruelty never seen before flashed in his eyes. Bede writhed in pain as Ivan poured a kind of medicine into the wound. "Stop, please, no more, do anything but that." He screamed in agony as the wound began to corrode. Ivan recalled a question once asked. "What do soldiers on the front hate most?" A flood of answers appeared: hardtack, seniors, commanding officers, the enemy, and Bede endured the agonizing medicine seeping into his wound. It's a recovery drug, its pain best understood by those who have experienced it. At the infirmary, a shrill cry rang out. "I'd rather have my arm chopped off than this." The nurse tried to reassure him. "Don't say such terrifying things. If we leave it like this, we really will have to saw your arm off. Sir Ivan, your body is a treasure of our nation." Ivan was furious at being treated like a living experiment. Who treats a treasure like this? Ivan recalled the first time he had to endure that horrific medicine, an experience from his youth when he had little experience. The nurse continued pouring the drug onto Ivan's wound and gently encouraged him. "Come on, endure it one more time, tell me if it hurts." After that terrible treatment, he always tried to avoid getting gravely injured. This cursed drug forces you to experience the entire pain of slow recovery all at once. After testing the drug's effects himself, Ivan discovered another use for it. It was astonishing, and my teammates on the extermination squad couldn't help but admire it. He repeatedly healed his wounds and then resumed interrogating the leader. Heal with the drug, interrogate, then heal again. This truly was. The leader was completely broken. He begged, "I don't know anything more, please kill me." A method that forces any prisoner to confess, a perfect self-incriminating serum. Ivan refused the leader's plea for death, still pouring the medicine like watering a plant. "No, you need to live. This one is probably the tutorial boss. There's no reason to kill him." He kindly brought the still living leader back to the train. "That's why I was kind enough to carry him all the way, but seeing that he can't even remember who ordered the terrorist attack, this guy is definitely just a low-ranking lackey." Ivan suspected someone had used magic to hide the leader's memories. Could a cognition-reducing spell have been cast on him? Suddenly he sensed an object hurtling toward him at terrifying speed, a projectile. Ivan focused to identify the target of the incoming attack. Where is it aimed? Between the eyes? No. He realized the rock was large enough to crush his entire head, his whole face. Holy crap, he barely managed to duck and avoid it. Ivan knew firing back would be meaningless against that power. shooting would accomplish nothing. He seriously assessed the thrower's strength. To hurl a rock with that force meant the attacker was far stronger than expected. A loud explosion reverberated across the sky, black smoke billowed and obscured Ivan. He figured the opponent had enough experience to sense killing intent and projectiles. In that case, it could be assumed the foe also knows how to detect incoming trajectories. Ivan looked toward where the rock had been thrown and taunted coldly, "Come out." Heavy, murderous footsteps slowly sounded. Mord Eriksson stepped out of the shadows with an aura that could crush a man. He growled, "Seems you have some skill yourself." Ivan raised his axe and backed into a defensive stance. The man laughed coldly, yet, entrusted by the king, Mord Eriksson stepped out enraged that his granddaughter was tortured. "How dare you touch a hair on her head? You're foolish compared to your true ability." Ivan snorted and lunged forward. He'd misjudged. This was not the tutorial boss, but the boss's grandson. He gripped his combat weapon with both hands. Ivan coldly warned Mord Eriksson before the fight, "For your own sake, you better know something. After all this terrorism, this one is the real leader." Mord Eriksson swung his axe forward viciously. Ivan nimbly dodged that blow. He was taken aback by Mord Eriksson's terrifying strength. Strangely, this guy was too strong. Ivan spun his weapon a few times in his hands. He quickly counterattacked several of the man's strikes. I was sure this was the tutorial, so could my prediction be wrong? Mord Eriksson reacted swiftly and gained the upper hand. Ivan luckily dodged in time. He couldn't believe a raider would possess such skills, with someone pulling strings from the shadows. The two clashed and grappled fiercely. Their blades met with screeching, ear-piercing clashes. Ivan's resolve grew ever stronger for his cause, Princess Esidici, one of the protagonists. He looked at Mord Eriksson, who also wanted to win. He too was thinking of someone, his beloved granddaughter Esidici. Two opponents on different sides but sharing the same goal of rescuing her. I must save the girl. Elsewhere, an explosion sent up choking smoke. Inside, some thugs were deliberately hurting Esidici as she begged them. "Please stop." One of them leered and licked his lips. "I thought you were just a normal survivor." He was talking when a shock hit his face. "That'll teach you." Esidici used her beloved instrument to strike him. Feeling guilty, she cried out, "I'm sorry, violin." It sent the man flying onto the roof and left his head stuck there. The two remaining thugs watched and muttered, "Impressive." Esidici trembled, clutching the instrument as tears streamed down her face. "You bastards." She was mourning her instrument, crying, "K-Kang, K-Kang, K-Kang, K-Kang is a 2-year-old violin, you crazy bastards." Outside, Ivan recalled some information about her. Princess Esidici resembled her mother in many ways, but her father was a tyrant. Esidici sniffled praise. "This case is truly a wonderful instrument." The robbers were taken aback. Really, the thugs were terrified by her strike. "Damn it, run, go, boss." She raised her instrument again and ran toward the thugs, shouting the instrument's name in tribute, "K-Kang, K-Kang." Her eyes brimmed with murderous intent. "I'll avenge you." And from that moment, the strongest music student on Earth was born. The fight with Ivan's side hadn't ended. Amid the clash, he heard screaming growing nearer, "Help me." Another thug was sent flying into the air amid his comrades' jeers. "I'm screwed, run." Ivan and Mord Eriksson paused, drawn by the commotion. Ivan felt uneasy and shouted to the fleeing thugs, "Wait, what happened to the red-haired girl? Is Esidici safe?" Mord Eriksson asked the same. "Is my granddaughter safe?" Only then did both realize they shared the same objective. Ivan leapt out of the fight and questioned the man closely. "The recovery serum earlier, wasn't that your granddaughter?" The system quickly appeared. A train robbery in a school story style can never kill the protagonist because a helper will appear to assist. Ivan realized this and made a soft sound. Did he confirm this man was Esidici's helper? Mord Eriksson slowly calmed and asked, "Wait, aren't you in cahoots with those guys?" Ivan immediately denied it. "I don't know why you'd think that." Mord Eriksson pointed out why he suspected him. "You poured recovery serum on that bastard earlier." Ivan recalled silently that was one of the interrogation methods used by the extermination squad. Someone had scolded him for it. "Are you crazy? Who uses medicine like that?" Ivan fell silent for a moment, then gave a brief explanation. I had to investigate some things. Mord Eriksson understood. You should have said that from the start. Then he quickly turned his attention elsewhere. Mord Eriksson looked toward the furious Esidisi and shouted her name, Esidisi. He hurriedly asked about her condition. My granddaughter, are you safe? She immediately recognized Mord Eriksson, uncle. Ivan silently observed them. I saw the target Esidisi 7 years ago. The image of Esidisi and her childish voice flashed through his mind. Uncle, do you remember? Back then she was just a child, but maybe she still remembers me. Ivan looked at the reunited pair and confirmed the target was safe and the helper capable of escorting her to the academy. If his identity were exposed here, it would be very problematic. Esidisi then noticed the direction where he was standing. But there was no one left there except the thugs. She wondered, Uncle, wasn't someone just here? Ivan had already left. It's time to withdraw. Mord Eriksson also silently looked in that direction. He recalled the earlier fight and reasoned that the fighting style was identical to that of the Krasilov Special Forces. He analyzed the boy's movements. He thought the way he used the axe looked very familiar. It closely matched Elder Einar's axe technique. Then a name fitting all those criteria came to Mord Eriksson's mind. If he was from Krasilov and learned axe technique from Einar, there could only be one person, the prospective hero, Ivan Petrovich. He rubbed his chin and asked Esidisi beside him, Esidisi, do you remember anyone named Ivan? Hearing the name, she brightened. Uncle Ivan, yes, of course I remember him. The two walked together. Esidisi excitedly remarked, he's a very good person, kind and cool. Mord Eriksson added, I'm not so sure about the cool part, but still. Mord Eriksson heard a rumor. I heard he died 2 years ago. I wouldn't recognize him unless he shaved. Elsewhere, Ivan exhaled a light sigh of relief. He leaned his back against the wall and stared at the stream of water, mentally muttering, a tiring day compared to the money earned. Einar's eldest daughter, Esidisi, had arrived. A Huskarl guest, she was sent with an agent to ensure the target's safe arrival. At the grand magnificent castle, the letter reported that Einar's eldest daughter had arrived. Ivan's voice praised, good. The letter continued with other matters. The hero Maximilian's daughter Isabel from the kingdom of Thils departs in the first week of February, only days apart. The knight's son, Gilles Vert Oscar, departs from Thils. After reading, Ivan assessed these two. Our relations with their country aren't bad and the distance is short, so I needn't worry. In any case, the sorcerer Vialgrin's daughter was also arriving by airship. Enrique's disciple Lucia was already in the capital. He leaned back in his chair thinking, I really don't want to meet her, so this works out. If I handle 2 more trained terror attacks, the newbie tutorial should end. After a moment's thought, Ivan bit the pen cap and opened his notebook. So what I need to do now is... He busily scribbled items to eat when he returned to Earth. Kimchi stew. Ivan could think of nothing else now. He wanted kimchi soup, or better yet. One dish he circled prominently, spicy rice cakes tteokbokki. Ivan described it in detail, not the shredded sauce kind and not a franchised brand, just the tteokbokki sold at school gates. He bowed his head slightly. I want to go home so badly. At that moment, a face and voice appeared at the window, leaving us behind again. Ivan immediately turned to look toward the speaker. He asked her in surprise, how long have you been there? She was Priscilla, 17, an orphanage member. Priscilla stepped forward cheerfully. Since you started mumbling about the foods you want, headmaster. Ivan dodged aside and calmly asked, how did you get up here? Priscilla confidently explained, I'm in the graduating class. I study hard in class, you know. Ivan still couldn't believe it. This is the 3rd floor, he thought. Does wall climbing belong to the orphanage curriculum? Ivan and Priscilla stepped outside together. She shouted excitedly, I won, you know that right, teacher? He reminded her, next time use the corridor, it's dangerous. In a far corner by the wall, a figure watched Ivan's every move. It was a bunch of kids following him. Their game was to approach without the headmaster noticing, a favorite pastime among the children. A boy hurled a baseball hard toward Ivan, according to rumor. That man named Ivan could catch anything thrown at him from behind without looking. And he was a mysterious man who could find hiding children in a single turn. The kid who got caught went pale. Above all, Ivan stepped forward and picked the boy up. He put him on his shoulder. Contrary to his appearance, his personality was very gentle, making him one of the children's best playmates, and Ivan never stopped the kids from doing this. Everyone cheered when they saw him, the headmaster. All of this was part of Ivan's plan. If these children could learn to evade my senses, I think they'll be able to stand on their own feet even after leaving here. 2 weeks remained until the next group of children in the hero's party boarded the ship. Until then, it was freedom, or so I thought. That evening, a heavy rain was pouring outside the window. Priscilla was being held. She shouted at them fiercely, "You lot, if my headmaster finds out about you, you're done for." The others ignored her and one asked, "We're asking which side you're on, so shut up and stop talking about that old headmaster." They grew increasingly impatient. "So where did you learn to hide your presence?" They pressed on. "So who is your headmaster anyway?" Priscilla confidently named Ivan Petrovich. She asked them back, "Have you heard of him?" The two mulled over the name, Ivan Petrovich. Then they burst into laughter. "Never, of course we've heard of him." They sneered at the name. Ivan is the most common name in Krasilov and Petrovich the most common surname. At that moment another voice outside spoke up. "Wait." A girl stepped in, her tone serious. "Who did you just say?" Priscilla couldn't hold back her tears. Her voice trembled. "Headmaster." Priscilla repeated Ivan. His full name was spoken again, Ivan Petrovich. At the same time, people at the institute hurriedly reported to Ivan. "Headmaster, it seems a child from the institute has been kidnapped. Do you remember Priscilla?" He replied, "I remember." Ivan inspected the mark on the scarf left behind. There was a faint cross-shaped smudge on Priscilla's clothes, the emblem of the organization belonging to that wicked person. He was also concerned. "She's the person I least want to meet, but I have no choice. This will require adjustments to the schedule." Ivan knew that place well. It was a summons from an old master, somewhere I once belonged to. After all, the extermination squad was also created by her. The other snorted with derision. "That brat said he was going to retire. But he's secretly been building an assassination squad behind the scenes, and she's Enrique." Ivan didn't hesitate and went there. Nam Prizhenkaya, the underground sewer dungeons Enrique created. That's the only information I have. But it took less than 3 hours to find the place. He glanced up slightly. It was the first time seeing it in person, wasn't it? Right in the center of Prizhenkaya's courtyard stood a memorial and several statues. The departed into battle hero, the unknown hero, the goddess of victory. One day after the Demon King died and the war ended, the people panicked. "It's gone." The unknown hero statue suddenly disappeared. To uproot an entire statue in the heart of the capital, oh my God, and steal it without suffering any consequences, the reason this was possible is memorializing them is my right, Enrique, because Kevika was a member of the hero's squad. We are blades too sharp to be used in peacetime. Ivan guessed that disbanding the extermination squad and the reason she stole the statue was certainly. He noticed something odd and wondered whether this other inscription had always been on the memorial. On the plaque were carved lines, "Even if your names are forgotten, your glory will endure forever, on behalf of all who are not here." Ivan read the names engraved there: Elizaveta, Kirillovna, Krasilov, Enrique. Ivan gently closed his eyes and bowed his head slightly. Ivan told himself, "Do not mourn those who left before us." He paused for a moment and opened his eyes, "For I stand among them as well." At that moment cracks appeared in the ground beneath. A light tremor shook the spot where Ivan stood. He remained standing there as if he had known it would happen. Within that circle, Ivan was lowered into a chamber beneath the earth. A languid voice echoed from the opposite side, "So she still remembers it." Enrique didn't look up but already knew who had appeared. "It's been 7 years since we last met face to face, little Ivan." She was known as Enrique, the assassin of the former hero squad. Ivan recalled that glorious past. 100 years ago she betrayed and drained the elder vampire who had bitten her, ending the rampage of the vicious vampires across Prizhenkaya as a hero, while also being a vampire who took countless lives under the pretext of carrying out assassination requests. And was the sword-wielding figure who founded the extermination squad, my great master. From then on, she carried the title of the betrayer. Enrique set down the teacup and said, "You still haven't sipped your coffee." She taunted, "Afraid I'll poison it, it'll get cold like this." Ivan answered inwardly, "That's fine, I come from a country where people drink iced coffee." But he didn't say that aloud and went straight to the point he needed to know. "Where is Priscilla?" Enrique exclaimed, cutting to the chase. "You always do this, don't you?" Then she advised Ivan, "But don't go learning that for real, okay?" Enrique gave a mocking smile that made him look amateurish. Ivan trembled as a blade was thrown toward him. Enrique's gaze turned razor-sharp. "I remember teaching you, didn't I, that hostility is reserved only for prey?" A snake she summoned with spirit energy slithered as she spoke. "Don't worry about that child, I haven't bitten her yet and I'm taking very good care of her." Ivan now felt the oppressive murderous intent. Enrique continued to press him. "Now it's your turn to answer." She wanted to know clearly, "What are you plotting?" Not hearing an answer, Enrique, slightly impatient, asked again, "What are you plotting by assembling those orphaned children?" She thought to herself, "About this brat, when I heard you adopted an orphan after retiring, I really thought it was adorable. But things weren't that simple. Training an agent to execute ambush techniques perfectly within 2 years and then sending the girl to me was effectively an act of defiance, as if telling me you were opening a school to train killers right on our doorstep." Enrique felt that this was indeed a declaration of war, wasn't it? She kept staring at Ivan. "I must admit I'm a little disappointed deep down." It was heartbreaking. She looked him up and down and assessed him. "What's with that mustache? It's driving me insane. Why is he wearing an outfit that's been out of fashion for a century? Don't tell me it's a disguise." Seeing Ivan's serious, almost predatory reaction made her even more displeased. "I invited you here because I don't want to fight, yet you act like one touch will kill you. What are you thinking?" Ivan didn't know how to handle it either. "Enrique, what am I plotting? How much should I tell her?" He began to explain slowly. 4 years after the Demon King's death, the kingdom of Krasilov appears peaceful on the surface, but it is split in two. Torn by a succession struggle, the crown prince, willing to risk provoking an external war, and Princess Elizaveta, who seeks to preserve internal peace. To prevent war, the princess even redeployed an agent who faked her death to ensure key figures entering the academy would graduate safely. "And that agent is me." Ivan still didn't fully grasp her implication, but what did she mean asking what I was plotting? Ivan had many questions. "Enrique knows I'm carrying out the mission assigned by Elizaveta, so why is she asking for mission details? Has Enrique stopped siding with Elizaveta?" One possibility crossed Ivan's mind. Don't tell me this woman has sided with the crown prince. Both Ivan and Enrique, though on opposite sides, had the same question for the other, ultimately. What the hell was that madman thinking? After a long silence, Ivan spoke. "I hear you're raising an apprentice and the girl is scheduled to enroll at St. Jansk University this time. That's the only explanation I can think of. Yes, this is something we can resolve through dialogue." Enrique wanted to hear more, and then Ivan continued, "My clients have shown interest. If the girl is harmed, it will be a great loss for the nation, so they told me to look after your apprentice." Ivan reflected. That is the task Elizaveta assigned me. She knows the princess's methods. Unless Enrique has sided with the crown prince, she must understand my intention. And Enrique precisely understood his words. From her perspective, you're raising an apprentice, fine. I now know the identity, location, and personal details of your apprentice, so they told me to take care of her. Therefore, I am targeting your apprentice. After a moment, Ivan sat up. He thought that should make her understand. Enrique slammed the table and sprang up. "That brat is targeting my apprentice." She looked outside and ordered, "Lucia, come in." At the summons, the door quickly opened. "Yes, master." Enrique commanded. "Now greet him. This is your senior brother." The girl immediately complied. "I've heard so much about you." Ivan, seeing her, blurted out a question. "Are you human? Do you know your master's race?" Lucia replied crisply, "Yes, master is human." She added, "Although my master must live on a somewhat unusual diet, he is a true hero who loves me and protects this country. If you ask me what defines a race, I would answer, humanity." Ivan responded with an audible "oh." The scene surprised him a little, since the war with the demon clan, the kingdom has been hostile to non-human races, and the girl's openness was rare. Enrique rose and said with satisfaction, "She is my pride and joy, a far better person than I am, not superior to us, but a precious child I gained in the twilight years of my life. That's why." Enrique stepped forward with a line meant to reassure him, "I don't want to kill her, Ivan." Ivan slowly took up his weapon and stood. After all, everything had to come to this. He leveled the weapon at her, his voice cold. "If you're still colluding with the crown, then I'll use the memories between us to ask you one question. Where does your loyalty lie?" The sharp question Ivan posed: what did Alexander pay for people, blood, or territory? This made Enrique blink in surprise and retort, "Aren't you the one who shook hands with Alexander?" Ivan, astonished, replied, "What are you talking about? I've never once seen that man smiling." They both fell silent as their fighting resolve flared up. Enrique leaned on the table. The room grew so quiet you could hear a pin drop. She sat back down and complained, "This really drains me. It's like this every time we talk. Why is heaven so fair? If only I had a bit more gift of gab." Ivan didn't know how to respond. "It's not like that, ma'am." Lucia, not understanding but trying to join in, said, "I think you two look really good together." Enrique snapped back, "What the hell are you talking about?" Ivan exhaled in relief and finally lifted his coffee cup. "At this level of tension, I'd be tempted to demand overtime pay from Princess Elizaveta. But you took a small sip of coffee and confirmed that, anyway, the matter had been settled. Even when the instruction begins, Enrique's disciples won't face any major danger, because Enrique himself will protect the girl." The future student of St. Jansk University, Lucia, was teasing Enrique at the time. "Her master's murderous aura is no joke, truly fitting for a former assassin of the hero squad," she replied briefly, whatever, while Ivan continued to watch them and her master. "You remarked they looked more like mother and child than master and disciple." One could say the parent-teacher meeting ended smoothly without incident. At that moment, Enrique was a little curious. "By the way, Ivan, why did you teach ambush techniques to those orphan kids?" Ivan immediately explained that he had never taught them that. They were only doing everything they could to find work after graduation, and Enrique realized, right, they taught themselves. The matter was over, and then I walked quite a distance with Priscilla, which meant this place was fairly far from the orphanage. From the start, why did Priscilla bother coming all the way here only to fall into Enrique's subordinate's sight? While walking, Priscilla softly called out to you, "Director." She was shy, her eyelashes wet with tears as she asked you, "Could it be, just maybe, are you preparing to leave somewhere?" Her question made Ivan speculate. "A government agent visited me after I'd spent 2 full years staying only at the orphanage, and lately I've often been absent from the orphanage." Is that why she thought I was about to leave? No, maybe it's not that kind of issue. Perhaps it's just that the kids have seen through my deeper thoughts. After thinking it over, Ivan nodded slightly. He gave Priscilla an answer, "Maybe I will leave." Sobs erupted beside him as Ivan finished speaking. Priscilla couldn't hold back and hiccuped as she cried, "Please don't go, I wish you wouldn't go. I mean, if the director disappears, we'll be alone again." Hearing her sincere words, Ivan realized, so that's it, the war orphan must have thought her home was about to vanish. Everything became clear. That's why she rushed into the city center to look for work, and because she walked silently, she was mistaken for a professionally trained agent. "It's a pity." Ivan put his coat around her, and Priscilla asked further, "Where are you going?" Ivan remained silent but already had an answer in his heart. "I definitely want to leave this other world." However, later he did reply, "I am." He named a place. "I'll be going to St. Jansk University. Don't worry, I'll visit the school often." Upon hearing this, Priscilla stopped crying. She looked up at you and smiled slightly. "It's not like I can go immediately now, nor do I need to do that to make it happen at once. I've poured too much of myself into this place." At the orphanage, Ivan's voice announced, "So it seems it will take about 3 years before I can fully leave." Elsewhere, a small hand slammed the table. "St. Jansk University, I've heard the entrance exam is tough. Next year's admissions are in November, so." Priscilla was confident. "That means if we go there, we could see him again in just 1 year." The rules remain the same as before. Don't let the director find out. Don't get caught. And this time their goal was whoever got into that school first would win, and so all the children of St. Vasilisa Orphanage entered exam prep mode to pass into St. Jansk University. Ivan was reading documents and remarked that everything was progressing very smoothly. Esidisi, the berserker of the hero squad, daughter of King Einar. Lucia, Enrique's disciple, the vampire assassin of the hero squad. Ivan's gaze suddenly turned serious, and on the tracks there was a train. A sword was standing upright. The next person Ivan noticed was Isabel, the hero's daughter. Night enveloped the forest. Inside was a tent. The hero squad was basically an assassination unit, because they had to infiltrate deep into enemy territory to target the Demon Lord's army commander. They had to be extremely silent. Maximilian surveyed his handiwork and broke into a satisfied smile. Before he could feel proud, someone threw a stick at his head with a sickening crack and a scolding. "Are you insane?" Enrique stepped forward complaining, "Why don't you just run around and shout it out, yell that the Ally Kingdom's hope is right here?" A voice behind her called out, "All right." Enrique quickly turned his back to watch the others' action. Gilsvert swung his sword in a wide arc and competitive declared, "I won't lose." More cracks appeared in the sky. Enrique angrily shouted, "You two are unbelievable." After finishing, he slicked his hair back coolly and felt satisfied. "Looks like I sliced more this time. Good warm-up." Enrique reminded him, "Your wrist is broken." Gilsvert casually held his broken hand out toward the person opposite. "Patricia, patch me up." She was displeased with his attitude. "I find that comment a bit insulting." At that moment, one of them suddenly burst into delighted laughter. Einar was eager to show off his skills. The drone man lives to leave his mark on the world, and those behind, seeing the commotion, spoke up to restrain him. "I really wish you wouldn't. Don't do it." Einar had set his sights on the mountain before them as a target. One of his strikes hit, and the mountain quickly split open. And because of that, they poured out afterward like a wasp nest broken open. We struggled mightily to escape the Iron Dragon General and the Demon Lord's army. I still remember that ridiculous escape vividly. In the sky, the earlier cracks remained. The hero, Maximilian, scratched his head with one hand while pointing to the sky with the other. "I split the sky in two." And that was Maximilian's nature. Gilsvert beside him insisted on outdoing everyone. "I sliced more." Einar added, "I split an entire mountain." He continued, "Indeed, rather than cutting something intangible, isn't cutting something tangible a greater feat?" Enrique interjected to remind them, "Spouting big words doesn't make you any smarter." "The hero squad is a nest of lunatics." Enrique grabbed Einar by the collar. Einar panted and ignored him as he shouted, "I'm dead." Ivan judged Maximilian the craziest among them, and also the one who shone the brightest. He then looked toward Ivan sitting in a corner. "Hero, you risked splitting the night sky for no reason." Then said he did it just to gaze at the stars. "I don't like that hero." For reasons Ivan didn't know, that man had slain the Demon Lord 4 years earlier and suddenly vanished, cutting off all contact with the world. Even so, the world still remembers the hero, but they are forgetting the man named Maximilian. Now on the carriage, the person opposite noticed you were pensive and asked, "Sir Ivan, is something bothering you?" Ivan also spoke softly, "You know." Then he glanced at everyone seated in the car, "All of you." Ivan let out a breath. He recalled that time an annoying situation had arisen. The day I returned after foiling the terrorist attack, a voice inside exclaimed in surprise, "A real terrorist attack actually occurred. How did you know?" Dmitri was astonished at Ivan's ability, and that he pinpointed the exact date, time, and place. He came over and grabbed Ivan's hands with both of his. "Next time you go, we'll send counterintelligence agents to assist. About 5 of them. Is that enough?" "It's because I made them suspicious." Dmitri silently begged inwardly, "Tell me, I'm really curious. How did you set up an intelligence network we didn't even know about?" For Ivan it was simple, a natural reaction, considering that I, discharged 4 years ago, predicted a terrorist attack targeting key national figures. "You don't need many complicated things. I only predicted based on familiar patterns." but to him it looked like I had a secret transnational intelligence organization backing me. If I didn't offer a plausible explanation, it would lead to a dozen future headaches. However, that also meant there was no need to reveal the truth, because authority stems from mystery. However, the result was, Ivan gritted his teeth in anger. The end result was I got support from 5 clumsy agents. Clearly they're here to watch me, he snarled. Listen carefully. But Ivan wondered from the start why intelligence agents dressed exactly the same. He lost patience. I can't stand this anymore. Ivan continued to question them. With so many empty seats, you all crammed together so closely that anyone looking would find it suspicious. He rebuked them. How can I retire in peace when those calling themselves agents are this sloppy? The new recruits only fueled Ivan's anger more, let me tell you. Back when I was your age, thus a story began on the train carriage. After what felt like an interminable time, the train finally showed signs of stopping. As soon as they disembarked, they formed neat lines. As per your orders, we request permission to withdraw, Sir Ivan. Ivan felt he hadn't lectured them enough, so he continued in a commanding, fault-finding tone. You still say we express yourselves clearly, act decisively, and always hide your true intentions in the deepest place. Back when I was in the elimination unit. The agents smiled outwardly but screamed inwardly about Lieutenant Dmitri. I heard this man is extremely taciturn. Where's the taciturn part? He's a monster. He talked non-stop for 18 hours straight without a single pause. At the last remark they bolted. Only then did Ivan feel at ease. Finally they withdrew. He guessed Dmitri had probably told them to surveil me, but on second thought yesterday I also had to play the scary kindergarten teacher. Along with teaching them a lesson they'd remember, I gave them an excuse to leave. Ivan recalled the prior instruction, all of you protect Oscar, the knight's son. He turned away, inwardly remarking that he both shook off their surveillance and protected a member of the hero squad. Felt like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Ivan quickly shifted his attention to a blonde girl boarding the train. It seemed he recognized this girl as familiar. On the carriage, Isabel was looking out the window. At that moment, someone stepped up and placed a hand on her shoulder. Miss, please don't worry, he always. Isabel didn't let him finish and shoved his hand off her. She looked at him with a cold glare. Shut up, you useless idiot. He kept a respectful air. Miss, Isabel cut him off again. Get lost, I don't even want to look at you. As he left, Isabel continued to scold him. Idiot. The man stepped outside and gently closed the door. He couldn't bear it and grimaced, teeth clenched in anger. This train departed from St. Madeleine and is an express heading for the capital. Because this region lies near the front line against demons, most areas it passes through are heavily militarized and guarded. Of the 30 stations, only 3 are places where a terrorist attack is likely. The first stop is a suitable place for an ambush. But the second station is suitable for an assault, yet nothing happened there. And now the final stop. People on the train had dozed off to rest. The carriage sank into silence under the still night. Ivan was a bit surprised. What is this? Was my prediction wrong? Wasn't the tutorial preset to be a terrorist attack on the train? So Esidisi's incident was just an isolated case. No way, initial school story designs were all standardized. Ivan considered a possibility. Could it be that this isn't a school story after all? Damn it. Does this damn other world ever end? People ran off the train in panic. A bearded man angrily pointed a pistol, shouting, "Terrorists, there's a terrorist attack at the final stop." Ivan wondered, what if that ending was meant only for the protagonist? What if the hero didn't go into hiding but, after seeing the ending, returned to his own world instead? One answer occurred to him. Then what happens to the other world that's left behind? He looked at Kim Sunwoo's reflected image in the window. What about me? The train was rushing toward the final station on its route. Ivan kept denying it. No, I hate this. I don't want to stay in this damn world another second. His mind grew more frantic. Let go of everything I want to let go. I want to let go. I want to leave. I want to leave. I want to lie on a soft bed in a cozy house with a working fireplace, wrapped in a warm blanket in the world of games, novels, movies, and TV, and sleep for a week straight. I don't want to die. I want to live no matter what. I must return to where I once lived. I can do it. I can't take it anymore. Those gears and that certainty. What do I do now? I want to talk with Koreans about games and entertainment. Kim Sunwoo and the glass screamed violently from this place where the concepts of welfare and entertainment are faint, from this damn pre-modern fantasy world. Kim Sunwoo grabbed his own throat. I have to get out of here. Ivan stared in shock. The window pane before him cracked into large shards. At that moment an explosion went off. The glass before Ivan shattered into flying fragments. Carriages began to derail one after another. The train, Kim Sunwoo in panic, disappeared. Isabel was shaken by the blast and lost her balance, falling. Ivan was assessing his condition and beginning to do what Ivan Petrovich had to do. My head, my heart, my fingertips all went numb. He compared it to Krasilov's harsh winter, like that endless night, cold, silent, meticulous. Ivan was now certain of one thing: the compliance tutorial hadn't ended and I hadn't been wrong. He calmly stepped out of the carriage that had been blasted to pieces. Hope was rekindled in Ivan's mind, yet the ending still remained. Before long, the train was reduced to a heap of wreckage. Dust swirled thickly through the carriages. Isabel moved slightly and let out a soft sound of pain. Isabel struggled to open her eyes and wondered what had happened. Drops of water trickled down her face as a voice asked, "Are you awake, milady?" The man then looked up straight at her, surprising Isabel. Someone was holding the rubble off her back to protect her. The pile collapsed again and he cried out in pain, "Isabel, milady." She recalled him. He was the one she had driven off earlier. Isabel wondered why he would. He urged her desperately, "Milady, you must run, they're targeting people." Isabel, unwilling to have others sacrifice themselves for her, said, "Leave me and flee." She gave a cold laugh. "Are you stupid? Why would you save someone like me? I know you hate me, don't you?" Isabel mentioned the most likely possibility. "You did this because you thought my father would be furious if I died. No, you don't understand. He doesn't care about anyone." "But you don't seem to be like that, I know it." He continued earnestly, "I never cared whether he worried or not. It's simply because you're the hero's daughter and you are the remaining hope." From a man named Maximilian. Isabel couldn't believe what she was hearing. "What are you talking about?" At that moment a voice rang out in admiration. "How admirable." Ivan stepped forward and lifted some of the debris off his back. Ivan then asked a question. "Knight, what is your name?" The man struggled to speak his name. "Diane August." He then asked Ivan in return, and Ivan did not hesitate to answer, "Ivan Petrovich." Ivan asked him one question. "Do you want to live?" Diane August panted for a few moments before replying, "If I can." Hearing the answer, Ivan popped open a bottle of medicine. He warned him it would hurt a lot. Thus the night Diane August endured the recovery drug's pain with iron will. Isabel decided to remember him that way. Ivan poured the medicine into his wound. Diane August screamed in agony, "Kill me instead. You want the night orders ledgers, right? I'll tell you everything." Isabel, unable to bear it, interjected, "Are you insane?" At that, Diane August turned to Isabel and shouted her name, "Isabel." Wishing she weren't the hero's daughter, she showed no mercy and slapped him hard. "Idiot." Diane August then fainted, no longer babbling. He only managed to leave one expletive behind. Assessing the situation, Ivan judged the shock had caused his mental retreat. "Isabel, you caused him to be hit. Reflect on your actions." Having said that, he looked toward the distance. "The ambushers are approaching down the path. We need to prepare. Carry that knight on your back. I'll handle the battle." Isabel drew her sword and assumed a fighting stance. "I can fight too." Her sword hand trembled in waves. Ivan only sighed once. "You've got talent, but it's unnecessary." Isabel couldn't accept that, offended. "Do you know me, uncle? Since when did we agree to drop honorifics?" Ivan didn't press it. He turned and remarked, "I guess your temperament is like your mother's, not your father's." Isabel blurted, "You know my father," Ivan began. "Well." He didn't answer her but ordered those around him, "Gather the survivors, make a fire, and remove the seats to use as blankets. Winters here are harsher than you think." Isabel, suspicious, asked, "If we light a fire, what about the ambush?" Ivan gave no further explanation. "That's not something you need to worry about." Isabel guessed, "Don't tell me you're going alone and you don't even know who the enemy is." Ivan's voice was flat. "That too is also not something you need to worry about." Ivan looked up at the full moon and recalled a line from Tactical Doctrine. choose the least harmful option and execute the optimal action. He had once dismissed it as obvious to the point of mockery, but in real combat you learn its true meaning. Assume the worst-case scenario and act optimally. The enemy will always try to attack in the hardest-to-counter way. When a train derails, the enemy expects surviving targets to flee. If so, they'll pursue because from the target's perspective, the worst scenario is being ambushed while running away. That raises a big question. What's the countermeasure? Place the target where the enemy can see it most clearly. Ivan quickly analyzed the situation. Now the enemy will recall the dispersed pursuit forces because they'll have to shift tactics from chasing to encircling. They'll organize an attack and surround the target. In that case, I'll take the optimal action. From that, assuming the worst and choosing the optimal action, the meaning is that if the enemy is the worst opponent they can be to me, then I must become a similar kind of presence to them. In short, take the blow I least want to endure, pistol sniping. The shooting technique was designed so eradication team agents could launch long-range attacks even with a handgun and return fire to the opponent. Those men were quickly struck by Ivan's bullets. They began scrambling to find who fired. Damn it, Inov's down, where are you? Step out, damn you. Ivan's plan was officially underway. Now they'd organize an attack to encircle the target. In a dark forest like this, a single torch is already an excellent target marker. They were taken down one by one. They discovered a weapon had been thrown, a battle axe. He swung toward the thrown axe and was cut down. Another man was cleaved in two. Ivan struck them down one by one without hesitation. The motion of sheathing the axe into his bag was quick and neat. After wiping them out, Ivan exhaled. A sudden ambush by the eradication team allows a single individual to encircle an entire group. The others, torches in hand, checked every direction with extreme caution. One man went to report to the leader, "Captain, we've been attacked again. This time all three were said to have been cut by an axe." The leader snorted coldly. "I sent troops straight toward the gunfire, yet." He thought for a moment. "They easily overcame the pursuit team we sent. Could they be an extremely elite small-scale strike force? This man is Fellows, the chief of 100 men in the 6th Iron Dragon General's Guard Infantry Division." He fell silent and strained his ears to confirm the bearings, west, north. Fellows could pinpoint the position precisely. Gunfire was gradually closing in around this spot. Did they act because they already knew our location? Could it be? He ordered a subordinate, "Hand me that man's gun." Fellows fired once into the air, then quickly and confidently announced, "The enemy is only one person." Someone voiced doubt. "Impossible, Captain. Clearly there were shots from different directions." He retorted, "Have you still not realized?" At that moment many cords suddenly appeared. They were tied to a shoe. Fellows explained loudly, "It's a trap." He shouted angrily, "Those were our own shots being fired." At that, a subordinate hearing the noise turned around. An axe blade suddenly lunged forward and sliced his throat. Fellows was still explaining to his men, "I fired the first shot only to test whether he could sense bullet trajectories. We reacted too quickly because we sent the pursuit team right where that bastard wanted. We were bait from the start." The adjacent subordinate wondered aloud whether the hero's daughter had staged all this herself. Who in the world could pull this off alone? Fellows repeated his words, "The hero's daughter." He recalled past events. "I remember the manifestation of that absurd martial skill. She would be a monster even at half his power." After thinking it through, Fellows ordered, "Assemble everyone, take the whole force and capture that bastard." The subordinate promptly acknowledged, "Yes, Captain." He added, "I'll operate alone." The subordinate, surprised, said, "What?" The firelight now flickered across the night sky. The survivors from the carriage gathered around a fire. "We're all going to die, aren't we? I'm so scared, mother." Isabel anxiously looked at Diane. August, please wake up." He was in a dazed state, murmuring, "Mother, look, the fireflies, they're glowing." But then something happened that caused Isabel's pupils to dilate fully. A triumphant laugh sounded behind them. Fellows stood upright and announced, "I am Fellows, chief of 100 men in the 6th Iron Dragon General's Guard Infantry Division." The person he targeted was Isabel. Are you the hero's daughter? I'll deal with the hero's daughter myself. Night had fallen and the full moon hung high. Ivan, weary, sat beneath a large tree and recalculated enemy numbers. Aside from the commander with bullet trajectory detection, a total of 50 soldiers had been deployed. Blood on his axe kept dripping in beads. Ivan looked up at the strewn corpses before him. I've taken down nearly all of them. Then he skillfully resecured the axe at his hip. Walking, Ivan steadied himself on the large tree trunk as he passed over the field of bodies, yet he felt increasingly unsettled, if this were an academy story. His serious gaze did not waver as he looked ahead. So right now, as the protagonists enroll, this must be the tutorial, but this tutorial is far too difficult. He recalled parts of the tutorial memories for Esidisi and sneered. Esidisi's tutorial was so easy I could beat it with one hand. All that happened were a bunch of weaklings. They didn't even know to use bullet trajectory detection to seize the enrollment train. But then Ivan remembered the Isabel-related event in the game with his eidetic memory. What about Isabel's situation? Escaping a carriage buried under a landslide is already a problem, even if the original game had some puzzle to get out. In his head, everything turned into mandatory combat game graphics. Then a group of unidentified elite soldiers charged in without even bothering to trigger the combat tutorial. Ivan considered the worst case for her facing Ifellos, and above all, the boss was a powerful enemy who could use bullet trajectory detection. Ivan moved step by step through the forest, thinking as thoroughly as he could. Some games have tutorial bosses you are forced to lose to, but these guys genuinely wanted to kill Isabel. His steps suddenly froze on the ground, unless a helpful NPC appears to save her. Wait, no way. Ivan's blue pupils widened in disbelief. Am I that supporting NPC? With a spring, he shot forward like an arrow. If I'm really just an NPC, the kind of character that doesn't even appear in the end credits. In the end, Ivan easily leapt onto a towering tree. Does that mean I'll never get an ending? That I'll never be able to return to the real world? He covered his face in despair, braced his hand on the tree, and pondered two problems. First, why is the tutorial difficulty this chaotic? Second, would Isabel die without an NPC to help? After a while, Ivan again used his gaming and novel-reading experience to find the answer. There was only one way to find out. He stood on the wind-battered tree and looked toward the orange light glowing in the distance. Isabel stood with her sword facing Ifellos. Lady Isabel, he sneered as he kept advancing. I've prepared thoroughly because you're the hero's daughter. Ifellos jeered excitedly as he watched her stand there, but you're far too weak. Still, Isabel gripped her sword with righteous hatred and stared at him, exhausted, even as she was about to die. From the tree, Ivan looked down coldly and resolutely reminded himself, I will not interfere either. She rushed in again to engage Ifellos, but he could parry using just one sword-handed grip. While parrying, he chatted casually. Sometimes I see people like you who think attacking faster and smoother is just about memorizing the training manuals, right? Then he immediately dismissed her. You're wrong, which provoked her rage further as she screamed, shut up. Ifellos' words made the people behind pale with worry. She's the hero's daughter. One slash is meaningless if it doesn't hit the foe. The hero's daughter has grown this much already. Ifellos showed no mercy and slashed across close to Isabel's face, making her wince as she blocked with her sword. His gaze and voice were full of contempt as he passed Isabel. The hero's daughter has grown this much and never seen real combat. Pathetic. The fury inside her was provoked, so she attacked even more frantically. Shut up. But the next instant, Isabel's familiar longsword was knocked away. The sword stuck into the ground some distance from Ifellos and her. His sharp blade was now pointed straight at Isabel's chest. I've lost capable soldiers for nothing. This could have ended much sooner. Ifellos kept his sword trained on her in a low, threatening tone. Unlike that hero, you can't protect anyone, hero's daughter. Any last words? Isabel's face showed a clear sadness as she silently repeated two words in her mind, hero. Suddenly, a voice came from behind, making her glance back in surprise. Don't try to be a hero. From afar, the figure and voice of Diane August grew clearer. We call him a hero not because he is the strongest, but because he is the bravest. She recognized him in astonishment, Lord Diane August. Diane August's eyes stared at the ground, nearly hopeless, as he slowly said, "Therefore, we must never become heroes. This is the knightly oath he swore before going to war over 10 years ago. We are not even allowed to try because we must always remain aware of our own weakness." He was kneeling and performing the ceremony in the grand palace, Diane August's gaze fixed on the tiled floor. "Therefore we must never become heroes, we are not even allowed to try." Before the knight stood the king, holding a two-handed sword and solemnly reading the oath. These words remained engraved in his heart even after he lost his reason. That ceremonial sword lightly touched Diane August's chest as if carving the vow, to stand with the weak and see people like us through the lens of the weak, the knightly oath of the kingdom of Thils. Only then did she realize and declared resolutely, "I will do so. Once I accept that, I recognize how weak I truly am." "I fellows," losing patience, swung at Isabel. "If you have no last words, then die." She managed to roll onto her stomach in time to dodge the killing blow. "We must recognize our own weakness. The reason we wield the sword is because it is right to do so." No longer afraid, Isabel lunged for the sword to retrieve it. "We do this because the greater good must be defended." That reckless moment of Isabel's also terrified the weak villagers sheltered behind her. It was no different from giving alms to the poor or helping an injured person to their feet, because it is the right thing to do, because it is justice. He could not kill her and enraged swung his sword again. "Therefore, O Knights of Thils." But at that moment, Isabel seized the hilt. "You stand here not out of bravery, but out of humility." She quickly parried another dangerous blow. Isabel's hand trembled slightly from the weight and fatigue. Doing good is always simple and natural. Her whole body suddenly shone with righteous fury. "So, in the name of justice, draw your sword." In the blink of an eye, Isabel swiftly overwhelmed Ifellos. He was struck by her power to the point he could barely block. Seeing his end near, Ifellos refused to accept it. How could this be? Isabel, eyes filled with courage, charged at him with her sword. The two metal blades clashed, producing a jarring ring. But the next moment, Isabel succeeded in plunging her sword into Ifellos. His blood began to flow from the wound in a stream onto the ground. His body slowly sank to the ground, Ifellos clutching the wound, his voice resentful. "After the hero's father, now I'm stabbed by his daughter." Moments later, due to the severe wound, he collapsed. A cold, warning tone came from Isabel. "I am not the hero's daughter." Her jade-green eyes looked down and corrected him. "I am Isabel, daughter of Maximilian." Ifellos, using his last breath, tried to respond. "I understand." Isabel then sat down wearily and exhaled in relief. "I'm completely exhausted." She used the sword to keep herself from collapsing, but the villagers who witnessed the scene rejoiced. "Everyone who survived has escaped safely. We did it, we survived, thank the heavens." Immediately after, the voice from behind offered praise. "Well done." She watched Ivan approach, his body smeared with blood, and asked curiously, "What about the other enemies?" He simply replied, "He's the last one." Hearing that, Isabel relaxed a little and sat down on the ground. Astonishing, really, but Ivan didn't pay it much mind, who could say? He watched her sitting there calm down. It turned out this terrorist attack was just an early game awakening event as usual, the kind of event in the beginner's tutorial. A tragic, shattered scene flashed through his head. If it followed the cliched trope, all the survivors, including Lord Diane August, would have been wiped out. From that, Ivan could infer the next development for Isabel. She would likely awaken and slaughter every enemy in this forest. But now Ivan looked at the happy, smiling faces gathered around the fire. The reason they survived was because I intervened, which would be impossible for a normal NPC. Relief washed over Ivan as he stared up at the sky and thought, "Thank goodness, I'm not an NPC." A memory surfaced as a shimmering, beautiful scene. Suddenly I remembered that day, the day the first hero cleaved the sky in two. Afterwards they lay together on the ground watching the glittering night sky. What the hero wanted to see that night was more than just the stars. Ivan's gaze never left the bright star twinkling in the night sky above the demon lord's cloud-choked domain. He wanted to know that the morning star still shone where it always had. Then he sighed and glanced back. I never liked that hero. But Ivan remembered Maximilian's smiling face from that night, even now. He looked at Isabelle lying on the ground, exhausted but content. The morning star still shone there, and all I can do is admire it. Seeing Ivan as if about to leave, she sat up. Now that my thoughts are clear, I'll remind myself of my original goal, to ensure the daughters of the hero squad all graduate safely. Ivan rummaged slowly, wordlessly inside his coat. To do that, there's still much I need to learn. How could demons roam freely so close to the capital like this? He calmly produced a green vial from inside his coat. Who is leading them, and how many of them have infiltrated the academy? The sight made Isabelle recoil in alarm and ask suspiciously, Uncle, what are you doing? The green light from the glass vial made Ivan seem more dangerous and mysterious, and eradication squads have many ways to heal, just to satisfy that curiosity. The green liquid kept pouring over Ifello's body. You think sparing me will make me betray my kind? You bastards, I curse you, filthy humans. He writhed in agony, screaming constantly, What, you think you can torture me? Come on, try it. I'm chief of 100 men Ifellos of the 6th Iron Dragon General's Guard Infantry Division. He gave Ivan a razor-sharp, hateful look. Remember my face, for I will never forget yours, even in hell. His long, sharp tongue lolled out between his teeth. Ivan remained completely calm and spoke evenly. It seems he really is just a cannon fodder at the front. Unbelievable. People still believe that ancient legend. He pressed his dust-coated hand to Ifello's face. Biting your tongue to kill yourself won't work. You humans aren't built so fragile. If that were the case, people would die every day choking at dinner. Without hesitation, he pried open his mouth and poured the liquid in. Since you couldn't move in the first place, the only way you'd die is a heart attack. Doing this only prolongs the pain. Listen, I'm not here to torture you. He looked down coldly with emotionless eyes. Chief of 100 men, this is just first aid and this is a recovery potion. Suddenly a strange voice made Ivan puzzled. Venom Spider Petrovich. In a near-death state, he still forced out words. I heard you were dead. This method, the eradication squad, I see, so that's it. Ivan was startled. He served on the front lines in the war. Curious, Ivan quickly asked seriously, why would you personally intervene in this? A capable person like you isn't a disposable tool to be tossed aside. His mouth couldn't widen. He could only answer with difficulty, because we cannot afford another failure. Ivan's pupils stopped in place in surprise. Another failure? Don't tell me. I now understand why such a strong opponent was assigned to be Isabelle's tutorial foe. Faint, amber-tinged memories surfaced. Because I neutralized their previous operation, the demons sent a strong officer so they wouldn't fail again. His own nimble hands had used weapons to kill them all, so why send a lowest-rank 100-man chief among the officers? A rueful expression forced Ivan to lower his face. I see. It seems there won't be another terrorist attack after this. Given that you failed, he realized a harsh truth. The whole thing was just a terrorist strike carried out by a small group of extremists. He sat beside Ifello's body and bluntly assessed the situation. The ones pulling the strings will tell the allies that exact story and then discard you. Surprisingly, Ifello seemed indifferent, as if he had expected it. I know. Something still made him grip the weapon tighter in his hand. After all, from the start, whether I succeeded or not, I was just a thrown-away weapon never to return like. Ivan's tall silhouette holding the knife pressed even more on Ifello's eradication squad. He grabbed his horns and lifted him with some restraint. You have 3 choices left. First, remain imprisoned, be escorted to the capital Prisiankaya, and die under brutal torture and magical seals at the hands of counterintelligence. Ivan explained evenly. Second option, be released here and return home. Of course, the counterintelligence will tail you wherever you go, and your kind will regard you as a traitor who sold them out to save your life. And the third option, he paused for a moment, bringing the axe closer to Ifello's throat. He flinched slightly at the sharp axe to his neck. Finally, Ifello's had to speak. Even if you pass through the valley of the shadow of death, you need fear no disaster, for I am with you. He grit his teeth and glared at him, ordering. I am the North Star in the darkest night. I am the lighthouse amid the stormy seas. Stop stalling, kill me. Ivan recognized the words he had recited, a prayer offered to the demon lord. A moment later he turned and asked, "I fellows, are your parents alive?" He looked surprised and glanced over. "What?" His eyes looked at him in disbelief. "What the hell are you talking about?" Ivan paid no mind and calmly replied, "I run an orphanage. Go destroy the 7 great dragon generals." Ivan solemnly recalled the message like a mission. He walked alone toward the sun, leaving corpses strewn after the battle. 4 years ago, when the eradication squad received that order, all 8 assault teams were wiped out, except for one. Elizaveta's tears fell onto the form on the table. "When I returned safe," Elizaveta told me. She sadly lowered her head and signed the form. "Live the rest of your life quietly and stay out of sight. Act as if I am dead." She apologized for not being able to stop that order and told me she was only grateful that I survived. Ivan explained as he looked down at I fellows with the axe at his throat. "So if you have even a shred of desire to live, you can abandon your former self and live a forgotten life like someone who's dead." But he stubbornly objected. "I don't deserve it." Ivan quickly countered, "Everyone deserves a second chance. Loyalty and faith don't have to define your entire life." Ivan gripped his horns and admonished in a low voice, "If you want, I'll break your horns. That will be the final shackle binding your body." That threat made I fellows fearful, but Ivan added, "If you prefer, I can lower the axe a little further." His eyes softened slightly. "I'll say it one last time. This is your final choice, a chance to live as a human or to leave as a human." He looked up at Ivan, becoming hesitant with fear. He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to think. Finally, among the 3 of them, he admitted, "I want to live." Ivan smiled softly in approval, a wise choice. Then there was the sound of I fellows breaking done by Ivan. The next day his photo appeared in the completed orphanage registration. Name I fellows, orphan status, age 505, demon race. His thoughts drifted again to the image of the train plowing forward. My most convincing hypothesis is that this world is a school story. Ruined, collapsing houses and chaos appeared, and as predicted by the hypothesis, Isabel, the hero's daughter, was ambushed. But because of me, the tutorial's difficulty spiked into the skis. Below the mountain, medical teams were treating the wounded and helping process the bodies, which meant the demons weren't just pre-programmed to follow a set route. They and everyone else in this world weren't merely NPCs. The sky shifted toward evening and shimmered with colors. If so, predicting every event is impossible and obsessing over its course may be meaningless. After all, there's only one thing I need to focus on. In front of Ivan and Isabel, a pair of children were holding each other and sobbing. The outcome: keep these children alive until graduation, even if players, NPCs, and events all veer into unexpected directions. Ivan looked down at her while his mind kept turning. That sole goal never changed. Isabel then called softly, "Uncle." Her voice trembled as she saw a family grieving over their child's body. If I hadn't boarded this train today, could their family, could the people on that train have survived and returned? Ivan feigned indifference and replied, "Probably yes," but he didn't finish because they weren't merely NPCs. Suddenly Ivan added, 30,000 people a year. Isabel blinked in confusion. What? The paths the hero squad took were empty and made deliberately easy to open the way for the hero squad to penetrate. That's the casualty count from baiting the demon lord's forces into an unwinnable battle. Maximilian's figure darted through the corpses. It was a desperate measure to eliminate the 7 great dragon generals and the demon lord, but it meant 30,000 lives fell to the hero each year. Myself, the soldiers, everyone knew it. A worried smile spread across his face, yet the hero always smiled through it all. He reached out with dried blood-stained hands as he recounted the story to her. Even if hope is so scarce you must split heaven's path to find a single morning star, he must be the light of hope for everyone. The moment he falls will be the end for the allied kingdoms. Ivan pointed straight ahead. Isabel followed his hand and her eyes also began to shine. He solemnly entrusted the responsibility to her. It's the star your father carried then, and now it's the star you will inherit. However, Isabel blankly turned and asked, which star? There are so many stars I can hardly see clearly." But a second later she suddenly exclaimed in surprise. The largest, brightest star in the night sky was shifting form. Being a hero is not merely about becoming the strongest. Ivan and Isabel stood under the great tree, looking up at the starry shapes. Someone who never kneels before any burden and never loses their smile no matter the circumstances. That is whom we call a hero. He said as he reached out to pat her head. So Maximilian's daughter, Isabel, hold your head high and stand firm. Rise together with hope. Ivan gently urged while looking into her green eyes. Live your life, always remember and be grateful for others' sacrifices instead of dwelling in guilt. Prove to everyone that their sacrifices were not in vain. People pity the sorrowful, but they admire those who keep a smile on their lips. Ivan proudly looked down at Isabel under the starlight, like a morning star. She stared at him, Isabel's face slightly flushed. Then she suggested, might you be thinking of shaving that beard off? But he immediately refused, no way. Early morning at the great school St. Jansk University, late February. The chirping laughter of boys and girls drifted in the air, even on the chilly early spring morning you passed. The freshmen couldn't hide their excitement and joy. In contrast to the youthfulness, two dreamy students carried many books while upperclassmen looked at them with pity. Lines of students formed everywhere you looked. In the outer courtyard, all races stood waiting solemnly. It was just an ordinary opening ceremony. Then the sky above them darkened. They looked up until that giant shadow covered the entire St. Jansk campus. The sight made everyone point and murmur skyward. A star battleship, a flying warship, isn't that the crest of Krasilov? Dmitri sprinted with all his might in that hair-raising moment. We're doomed. We're really doomed, he frantically burst into her office. Headmaster, a Krasilov battleship is hovering right above Przhinkaya. This annoyed her. Hey kid, I have eyes, you know. The manic moment was further revealed on Elizaveta's displeased face. While everyone else was looking up, only Ivan felt irritated. Damn, I hope they don't wipe those guys out too. Well, Isabel got caught in a train derailment, so all of them leaving unharmed would already be a miracle. The clear sky now bore two warships flying above. To be honest, what the elves are doing in the sky can be summed up in two sentences. Your border control is a joke, we protect our children. You'd think no one would dare such a stunt, but it's entirely possible. He walked in alone with his private thoughts. After all, Esidisi, Einar's daughter from the hero squad, was probably on that ship, and then his gaze swung back after he heard a voice. Uncle, didn't you say you were a lecturer? Isabel came running from behind, dragging her suitcase. Wait, with skills like yours you must be a professor, right? Which department? Physical education for sure, not the knightly order. Hold on, does St. Jansk teach assassination? So are you really a PE teacher? He simply glanced and immediately recognized her. Isabel, the hero's daughter, has arrived. He answered with a frighteningly serious look. I am a gardener. The moment those words reached Isabel, she shouted, no way. Among the crowd, Esidisi remained on guard and simply stood observing. He saw Lucia standing alone whistling. Lucia, disciple of Enrique, you've been in the capital from the start. On one side, a handsome man attracting many girls. Let's go inside, Oscar. Ivan outwardly moved on but kept an eye on the others. He strode into the campus proudly while Isabel lugged the luggage behind him. All the children of the hero squad had arrived at the academy safely. Ivan, with a sharp eye, surveyed the situation seriously. The opening ceremony is in the main hall, right? It seems it's time for me to prepare the next steps. A constant murmur of noise rose throughout the auditorium. Because in a school story there are whole crowds from many social strata appearing here, there's always going to be unexpected incidents at the opening ceremony. That's just normal. Meanwhile, a lone guy standing in the middle of the event looked a bit flustered. What the hell? His eyes kept widening. Is this really happening? A system panel suddenly appeared. Congratulations. This surprised his mind, a status board. After that, we learned that the swordsmanship genius and waste of the Northern Duke's household was completely changed once possessed and shown affection. He then stylishly prevented a terrorist attack at the academy he attended and became famous overnight. My real name is Eugene, but in this story I am Evgeny Novikov-Karamzhin. Suddenly, a system panel appeared before Evgeny, displaying a new quest. Congratulations, a new quest has begun. Rank D. Repel the Academy raid. The Academy is under attack by an unidentified group. Stop the assault in the Great Lecture Hall and departmental facilities during the opening ceremony. Requirements: disable explosives. 3. Optional: eliminate intruders. Optional: protect freshmen. 0322. Evgeny stared at the system panel and thought to himself, as you can see, I'm a reincarnator. While still looking at the panel, it suddenly turned red. Another notification appeared before him: reward revoked. Seeing this, Evgeny was completely confused. Why was the quest suddenly cancelled? Could choosing the theology department have been a mistake? My plan was perfect. I got a swordsmanship genius like myself into theology because the sharpest thing I've ever wielded in life is a kitchen knife. So how am I supposed to start fighting monsters with a sword? Now learning swordsmanship and actually using a sword to cut something are two completely different things. Evgeny stood there pondering his situation. For someone who's never even slaughtered a chicken, this is too much for a modern Korean. That's why I chose theology. By setup, I'm also supposed to have an aptitude for the sword. If things went according to plan, I'd gain sword skills, an enhancement skill, and a healing skill. Then all I would need to do is safely become absurdly strong. He looked at the system panel again. So why did the status board suddenly assign me a quest and then immediately cancel it? Damn, why is this happening? Elsewhere, Ivan was busy dealing with the bombs. At the same time, the first mandatory objective on the quest board was completed. After successfully neutralizing the explosives, Ivan simply said, "Disabled." Then he resumed his thoughts. An attack during the Academy's opening ceremony is almost routine. However, with bombers in the sky and counterintelligence command on high alert, attacking the Academy now is nothing short of suicide, yet they proceeded. Ivan carefully assessed the situation and continued to reason. They had chosen locations that didn't attract guards' attention, blind spots where civilians wouldn't notice and where the explosives couldn't be seen from surrounding buildings' windows. They had searched for spots meeting all those conditions. He paused. This is the work of professionals. Ivan traced their logic in reverse. If I track their reasoning backward, I can narrow down where they placed the bombs. Once the approximate locations are identified, I just need to go collect them. Then we see Ivan carry the bomb containers outside. He sets them on the ground and begins burying them in the earth. While working, he thought to himself that at this point it was no different from harvesting new potatoes. After handling the explosives, Ivan began considering who was behind this. The only question now was who did it. The problem was too many suspects came to mind. The ones with the strongest motive to terrorize St. Jansk University are the demons, but unless they were utterly foolish, they wouldn't act like this right after their recent defeat. He continued to weigh possibilities. The elf clan has a warship hovering over St. Jansk, so they'd be the easiest to blame for a bombing. But they gain little from attacking the Academy. They have the means but lack the motive. Ivan then considered the most likely culprits. The prince's faction is the top candidate. They have both the means and the motive to strike St. Jansk. But even for them today is especially hard to act, since Elizaveta's furious counterintelligence force is guarding the entire area. With that in mind, Ivan took a deep breath and kept thinking, in a typical Academy story. An attack during the opening ceremony is almost obligatory, and to make it truly an Academy genre story, there must also be secret agents planted inside the Academy. While Ivan was still thinking, someone suddenly spoke from behind. "What's this, a black Santa Claus?" The moment Ivan heard the voice, his terrifying reaction speed immediately showed. Without hesitation, he picked up a stone and hurled it at the figure behind him. However, the mysterious man easily used his sword to split the stone in two. Then an unexpected situation occurred. Dust exploded into the air from the impact. It completely obscured the mysterious man's silhouette. When Ivan looked again, the man had vanished from sight. Ivan muttered Santa Claus right then, looking extremely annoyed. This world has no Christmas, no old man leaving candy, toys, and stockings outside. With that thought, Ivan immediately began searching for the mysterious man, looking in every direction. Meanwhile, the man quickly left the area at terrifying speed, thinking to himself, definitely a reincarnator. Then we see a large building, and a caption informs us it is the counterintelligence headquarters. Ivan slowly walked toward the building, still visibly angry. The guard outside immediately aimed his gun at him. "Hey, stop, this is a restricted area, if you ignore my warning." But Ivan was extremely well trained, with reaction speed far beyond ordinary people. In a flash, he grabbed the guard's gun and easily disassembled it. Then he twisted the man's arm and calmly said, "Well trained." At that moment, several other guards ran over and immediately aimed their guns at Ivan. Looking around, Ivan said, "Nice disguise." Then he calmly told them, "Call Dmitri." Hearing that, an officer stammered in surprise, "You know Lieutenant Colonel Dmitri. Don't make a scene here, find someplace quiet to talk." Ivan grew increasingly irritated as he looked at them and said, "My name is Ivan Petrovich. Has anyone here ever been in the eradication team?" An officer immediately replied, "I was in the last class. Senior, sorry, but may I see your face?" After a while, Ivan released the man he was holding, yet even then all the soldiers around him kept their guns trained on him. Ivan looked around and muttered, "Oh my God, it's true." The officer stared at Ivan's face. Recalling how small he once was, he immediately showed deference to his superior and said, "It's an honor to meet you, Lieutenant Colonel Petrovich. I'm Sara, formerly of Assault Team 3. I only saw you once before, and that was from very far away." Hearing that, Ivan simply said, "Don't mourn those who went before us." He stepped forward and continued, "Because I stood with them too." The soldier looked at him with suspicion. "I heard you died in action, Lieutenant Colonel. I'm sure I saw your nameplate at the National Cemetery," the soldier said. Ivan replied calmly, "I never thought Assault Team 3 would have survivors, instead of being the era's finest." Hearing that, the soldier answered, "I survived. All of us survived." After hearing that, Ivan kept walking and only said, "Bring Dmitri to me and notify the freshmen." Ivan looked extremely angry as he continued, "I want a full list of all university students, faculty, and guests attending the opening ceremony, important figures, their families, acquaintances, relatives, anyone who currently has access to St. Jansk University. Tell them I need a list of everyone." Hearing this, the soldier immediately replied, "Yes, Lieutenant Colonel." Then he turned to his men and ordered, "Hey, inform Lieutenant Colonel Cherkov, tell them an emergency has occurred." Ivan watched his people act quickly and thought to himself, the target is a reincarnator, his specialty is swordsmanship. Recalling the recent clash, he continued to deduce, young, male or female, if male at least, before his voice changed. The voice was too vague to identify. "So I need to hear it a few more times before I can judge." He carefully analyzed the mysterious man's movements. Judging by the agile motion and quick reflexes, he possesses the ability to sense projectile trajectories. Ivan continued to think carefully, trying to identify the reincarnator. Could he be Korean? No, that's not important. What matters is that in any case he's an Earthling. Why did he come here and how did he reach this world? Is he also the original author, or was this just an accident? Was he hit by a truck? He paused. Of course he could be the original author, that happens often. Ivan's expression grew more serious as he concluded, "One thing I'm certain of, he knows the original work is an academy genre story. That's the only reason a reincarnator would deliberately enter a university, because he knows the source material." With that thought, Ivan began scanning the entire area. He was so angry that the object in his hand began to crack and crumble under the force of his grip. So he also knows the ending. His face darkened. "Now I'm curious. First I'll find the reincarnator and determine whether that damned original wrote my ending too. Then there will be only one thing left for me to do." Meanwhile, elsewhere, someone suddenly called out, "Novikov Karamjin, that useless name." Evgeny turned toward the voice. His father immediately scolded him. "Just going to the bathroom caused so much trouble. You're still useless as ever." Evgeny looked utterly miserable as he thought to himself, "This youngest worthless son, thrown into a family I know nothing about and treated like this, it's already miserable enough. What the hell was that madman? Was it a monster? No, I've never heard of anything like that." Suddenly, several new system panels appeared directly before Evgeny. One of them announced that a new quest had begun. Other panels appeared in succession, revealing details of the quest. Unknown rank, Gardener of St. Jansk University, you have drawn his attention. May luck be with you. Arid, defeat the gardener. Optional, survive. Penalty for failure, death. Evgeny's face turned pale. He looked as if he were about to cry, utterly horrified by what he had just read. He stammered, I'm going to die.